What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go back to the comic book shop for or not. So make sure you subscribe to get more of these every single week. The book that I want to talk about right now is Batman Annual Number 2. So Batman Annual Number 2 is a story that really everybody needs to read. It's a key component of the current continuity for Batman, as well as it harkens back to some earlier days of Batman's history and some days in Batman's future. But let's do something a little bit different and dive right in. So Batman Annual Number 2 is really interesting because it's an annual in a time where annuals don't really matter anymore. And it really breaks the mold by providing a story that not only increases the amount of context as far as continuity is concerned, but actually generates new content and new things that readers can look forward to in the future. I mean, when we open up this book, we see at the beginning, Selina Kyle has invaded the Batcave, and she's kind of, off for a joyride in the Batmobile. It's insane to actually imagine this at this day and age, that, Catwoman would know where Batman's lair is and his secret identity to the point where she would handily go grab the Batmobile and take it out on a joyride around town. Even though Bruce Wayne, acting as Batman has got a few better things to do at this point in time, he still comes running, as this is really the first serious interaction where she's really gone after him specifically, drawn his attention. She drives, she drives the Batmobile into what looks to be a Porky's Diner, which is kind of crazy that they're working in like WB characters, from, Looney Tunes, that kind of thing. And ultimately she leaves a mouse as some sort of calling card, like we're playing a game of cat and mouse, except it's cat and bat. This is really interesting because we see that Bruce starts caring for this mouse. Well, Alfred starts caring for the mouse because Bruce is often far too busy. He's chasing down the Riddler, putting him in jail, trying to solve his next riddle, talking about this player that's no longer, what is the status of this second baseman that might have gone missing? Keyed off by a missing pen, Snarky Alfred is Snarky Alfred, wondering if it's a job for Superman. But in reality, this is a key. This is a hint that it's actually Catwoman until she, shouts out her meow and forces Bruce to go on a chase through his own house after this culprit, this person that evidently knows his deepest, darkest secrets. She even calls the police in advance so that way, when he wants to leap out and catch Catwoman, he can't. Otherwise, he reveals himself as something much more than this billionaire sitting alone up in his mansion. Of course, we get another bit of confirmation that Catwoman is the badass that she is, and she leaves another calling card in the form of a second mouse. So this is where things get a little bit better, because when we go later, Batman has made precautions. He's set up different things that can really kind of take care of his security. He's got, 5 alarms at this point in time. 4 she got by, but the fifth one's what got her and alerted him that she was in the house, specifically the bedroom. And the thing is that Selina already knew. She already knew that there were 5 alarms. She knew that the well-hidden safe wasn't quite well-hidden enough. And then the really well-hidden safe only has one thing, and it happens to be a pearl from his mother's necklace that was dropped on the ground. And this begins a little bit more dialogue than they've really had in the earlier parts of the book, probably more than they've had in various other areas inside their interactions, where they start to understand each other. They start to understand Bruce was left alone. Selina was a stray cast out onto the street, and they're bonding. They are finding that commonality. It's not just the heated sexual tension that kind of goes on in these various panels, but it's all about that unity, that feeling of belonging, next to one another. Of course, this is just another thing that, Catwoman playing the games as always. She triggers a smoke bomb on the belt, leaving Batman kind of there on his own with another mouse. So this ever-growing collection of mice, of course being taken care of by Alfred, is just really a way of, providing her calling card, making this a little bit more fun and jovial than it could have been otherwise. I mean, Batman still confronts her on the top of Wayne Manor as she's trying to break in through the skylight, and he just asks the one question, why? And of course, she has a great answer. I need to make you the best. You're good, you're really trained, you're so well trained, but I see it. You have this possibility that you're going to go out there, you're going to be overconfident, and you're going to die. You're just that spoiled little rich boy that always was. And Bruce is like, you don't know me, and Catwoman's like, you don't know me either, but, you know just enough to make you want to know more. As she kind of runs off into the forest after she leaps off the top of Wayne Manor, finally leaving Batman in the rain, standing alone with another mouse. Of course, Batman already knows where Catwoman is. He's known since the beginning. He's known since the first day, since the first mouse was left. He could have tracked her down at any point in time, but he enjoyed playing the game just as much as she did. So they connect, and finally he lays the first bat and cat kiss on Selina Kyle. And what this leads to is a recognition or recollection of when they first met. Batman's like, oh, it was on the boat when you took off your mask. And she's like, no, it was on the street. And the smart thing about this is that Tom King is calling back to the rooftops issues that he did with Mitch Gerads. In that, he explored both different introductions of Bruce Wayne to Selina Kyle's Catwoman in very different manners. You know, one was from a very early Detective Comics, and one was from, you know, the post-crisis origin that happened between Batman and Catwoman when he was a very different kind of person out on the street. And this is kind of showing how this is possibly two different Bat people. One from a much earlier time, one from a much later time. And they've kind of connected across this kind of schismed and broken and cracked universe to create this couple that is Bruce and Selina. Immediately we are thrust into them as old people sitting in front of a doctor's office waiting on results that unfortunately aren't what they want to hear. Because she, you know, Selina, always the independent one, as Bruce kind of recounts this story about how he was trained to imprint his senses on his memory at a very early age, a star pupil, she just breaks down in tears in the autumn colors, crying over whatever happened. We see her talking on the rooftop to her daughter, Helena, the replacement Batwoman, the product of Bruce and Selina. You know, this child that takes over the mantle of the cowl for, you know, for this legacy that was originally just a character derived out of Earth 2, you know, the product of Bruce and Selina. But no, in this one, she is canonized in the future of this current timeline. On top of that, we get kind of this odd sense because Bruce keeps kind of forgetting things. So, I mean, are we talking dementia? Are we talking Alzheimer's? Does the scope of his mind, his memory, one of his most powerful assets, is that the thing that's fleeting from him? It's not just his strength as he kind of drops the barbells in the cave, but it's something else that we can't quite put our fingers on and that we don't necessarily get any more information on. But we finish up with the last kiss of Bruce and Selina after he's kind of feeling defeated. You know, he can't lift the same amount that he used to, feeling like the old man that he actually is. And then we finally find him put to rest. And not only is he put to rest, but he's put to rest in front of a whole host of characters. We've got Tim Drake's Red Robin next to Stephanie Brown's Spoiler. We've got Duke Thomas there, obviously a Dick Grayson with a Barbara Gordon. It looks like we've got Damian as well as their daughter, you know, Helena. And then, is that a Dark Knight reference we spot? But that's where we kind of end things, with Selina saying goodbye and, you know, saying I love you, and ultimately Bruce having the last play in their game, hiding a kitten in the Batmobile, waiting for the love of his life. So when we take a look at this book, what we've got to really take a deep dive into is that the art by Lee Weeks is fantastic, but it really is enhanced by the actual coloring. If you look at the autumn schemes, if you look at the various scenes where they're talking individually, where Bruce and Selina are going back and forth, where they're on top of the mansion, there's a lot of different plays in here that don't require a lot of detail, but that convey a lot of emotion and a lot of structure. So, I mean, when Batman's standing in the rain and it's just kind of sprawling around him, you can very much feel how that happens, even though it's not necessarily a very finely detailed page. The sprawling spread of them on the rooftop, you know, you can see two different colors that kind of surround both of those characters that give them very different meanings. When we are talking about the earlier essence of Batman, it's almost like his entire attire changes over the scope of things. And that's before we ever get back into old Bruce and Selina, where we see the vibrance of autumn and we see the various other things that are really happening around this. So as far as the art from Lee Weeks, it's fantastic. And what Tom King does with this storyline, what Tom King creates when it comes to Batman Annual #2, is something that is going to be a linchpin for storytelling moving forward. Because not only does he honor both origin stories and both first meetings of Batman and Catwoman, but he creates a future for them too. That's why Batman Annual #2 is a must-buy book. It's a must-read book. It's one of those ones that people are going to be talking about for some time, or at least that's what I think. But I want to know what you guys think too, so hit me up in the comments down below, and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows, and games. and anything and everything inside the world of comics.